Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome those here present in the room and also members of the public and press who are watching today's meeting of the Corporate Parenting Subcommittee of the Children and Young People's Committee. Hope you'll find the discussion interesting. I'd also like to welcome Kevin Arrowsmith, the chair of the Cambridgeshire Foster Carers Association. Kevin, you're always very welcome to join us. Fortunately, I'm not having to watch out for you being online, so I shall see you raising your hand when you want to speak. I'd like to welcome Ricky Cooper. Ricky Cooper is now the Assistant Director for Children's Services and has taken over from Nicola Curley as the lead officer for this subcommittee. And to help the flow of discussion, I intend to waive the committee procedural role limiting members' contributions to 5 minutes, and I'll allow members to speak more than once on each item if appropriate. We'll try and make our contributions concise. And could I remind members and officers that all questions and responses should be directed through the chair. No fire alarm test scheduled for today, so if the alarm sounds, I will adjourn the meeting. We'll all leave the building by the nearest marked fire exit. I think the obvious place is the open door. It says in my briefing, it's outside the far end of the building, but presumably we go out the way we came in and then don't leave the site, we'll be okay. Thank you. Amongst the more regular reports, the theme of today's meeting focuses on health. So does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest on any of the matters on the agenda? As we welcome 2 substitutes, if anything comes up that you might possibly have missed, please don't hesitate to say so that it is minuted that you have an interest. Right, item 3, the minutes of the meeting on the, sorry. Oh, sorry, yes, we have, sorry, thanks for the prompt, yes. We have apologies from Councillor Boulat, looking for the bit here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure yes. Agenda, thank you.
Thank you. Apologies from Councillor Bradnam, who's chairing a meeting of full council at South Cambridgeshire District Council this afternoon. She's substituted by Councillor Maria King, from Councillor Boulat, who is substituted by Councillor Goodliff, and also from Councillor Maguire.
Councillor Hay.
Excuse me, Chair. I've just had a reply to a message I sent to Councillor Hoy and Councillor King. Unfortunately, Councillor King hasn't replied, but Councillor Hoy has said, no, sorry, I'm not on it, when I asked if she was attending.
Well, we're often finding, and I do hope it's not because people have tested positive, but we are finding that we're needing to send in quite a lot of substitutes. But it helps, doesn't it? Because we see other people's committees. So I'm sorry we haven't got another person to show them what a brilliant subcommittee this is. Right, back to the script. Item 3 is the minutes of the meeting of this subcommittee on the 17th of November 2021, when the focus was on education and the action log that goes with it. Are there any concerns? Yes, Councillor Hay.
With regard to the action log, there's 2 lines, action 23. Neither of them say what the status is, although by the last one, it looks as if it should be completed. But it doesn't even give an update for the first number 23. Also on item number 18, where members asked for supervised contact service report to be added to the agenda plan, it says an overview of the findings relating to reunification in activity in Cambridgeshire will be shared with Councillor Bradnam in April. So therefore, it's not quite completed yet, although it says, but my point is, can it not be shared with all members of corporate parenting?
Thank you very much. Yes, we picked up on that, but I'd much rather the committee picks up on things first so we know we're on the right lines. You're quite right. Not only were the young people involved, and we'll see this in the participation report, in considering the supervised contact service, and what they need to see and have, but also there was going to be some sharing from the officers. Now, would I be right in thinking, Ricky, that this will be part of the May meeting anyway, because I'd certainly added it and I was going to mention it when it comes to the agenda for the next meeting. So some follow up to tie up the loose ends left from November.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm more than happy for us to include it in the next agenda item for the next meeting. Absolutely. I think it will be really helpful for that information to be shared with members, and we can obviously work that for members for next time. Absolutely. Yeah, we can do that.
I can understand, and I'm sure Councillor Hayward have pointed out that some of that, if there would need to be when they're just members present and not the young people, but there would be some things that we want the young people to play a part in if they are participating. Fair. So as long as you guide us on where it belongs in the meeting, and maybe up there twice, but in 2 different forms. But yes, we'll have. We assume that that's going on the agenda for May. Thank you.
We can certainly include it. Yeah.
Anything else? In which case I'll take the minutes as approved. We've done the action log. We haven't received any public questions or petitions this month, so we'll move on. Item 4 is the participation report. And a copy of the draft promise to children and young people in care, which is referred to in the report, was published on the 18th of March as an additional meeting document. And a copy was sent electronically to all subcommittee members. Did you all get that, please? All right. Now, Ollie Grant, the Independent Reviewing Service Manager, joins us remotely to briefly introduce the report.
Hello, hi.
That's a relief. Welcome, Ollie.
Can you see me and can you hear me?
Both, indeed.
Both. Oh, goodness. Well, this is a pleasure to be part of this meeting in this format. It feels quite strange to me because I'm normally, well, in the past, I've been there in person. So I am the service manager for the independent reviewing officers, and I'm also the service manager for the participation team. The operational team manager, Shalina Chandu, normally presents these reports. She's in Istanbul, lucky her. So I'm going to present it on her behalf as best I can. So you've all seen the report, and I hope, as you say, you've all had a copy of the draft promise. I'm not going to read through the whole report, obviously. Just wanted to highlight a couple of bits. You can see that the team, as usual, has been very busy. We've been doing, I think since the last meeting, we had February half term, which is packed full of activities both online and some in person. We've been doing lots of work with the care leavers around the project they are running, which is a performance-based project where they bring younger people, so age 12 to 15, to build on their music skills, and their performance skills. And we've got some studio space for that, so that's been up and running. And we have been also, as it says, working on the ideal worker video. So we've been able to access some graphic designers and some animators to put together a short video for us, and that uses the audio from young people directly with their voices. So that's going to be, I think that's going to be really good when it's finalised and shared with everybody. The last thing I just wanted to mention before I open up to any questions, obviously you can see there's lots of stuff on there, but the coming into care packs is a kind of relaunch of something that we've tried to do a long time ago, but this is putting together little bags which contain some information in sort of graphic leaflet form, but also some just items to kind of comfort young people and welcome them as they come to foster families for the first time or into other types of placements. So there's a teddy bear in there, there's a colouring book in there, there's some nice little notelets and notebooks in there with, you know, inspirational messages and things. So it's really just a gift and an acknowledgement that it can be a hard time for children. And then there's info in there for them to look at with their foster family, you know, as and when they're ready, really. So that's been good, and that's been a lot of work, obviously, compiling those and putting those together, and then you know, taking them out around the county for social workers to be able to distribute when they need them. So I'm not going to highlight any other bits. I could go through the whole thing, but is there anything in particular on that you wanted to comment on? Otherwise, I can go through the promise with you a bit more, if that would be useful.
I just wanted to check that you heard the discussion before you came onto our screens about the work. Where are we? 3.9, thank you. You read my mind there. How useful, you can read mine. Yes, I have got it highlighted. Yes, that the Supervised Contact Centre, the work that the young people have been doing and may well have been consolidated by now, to bring it in some form to the next meeting in May. So perhaps if you and your colleagues can give some thought to the best way of doing
yes.
that.
Yeah, no problem. I'll make a note. I do know that the final visits for that have been delayed slightly, some due to COVID and some just due to the availability of young people. So I'm not sure if the final completion date for that will be pushed back, but we can let you know if that is the case, and if not, we can aim to bring something for the next meeting to update you.
Thank you. Councillor Hay.
I was pleased to hear about these welcome packs. I think they're a very good idea, especially for younger children. You know, all young children enjoy having a present. So well done on that. What I wanted to ask as well is, I noticed under 3.7, the Children in Care Council have finalised 7 designs for greeting cards for the social workers. Again, a very good idea. And I wondered if it'd be possible to let members of this committee have sight of those, because I think it would help us understand a bit more. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Yes, thank you. They are lovely, and they're all printed now. We've got tons of them, and they, again, similar to the welcome packs, are being distributed across different social work teams. So they've got a stock of them, really, and they can be used either when social workers may be leaving, moving on, and to hand over to the next worker. And so there's a little card to say goodbye, or for anything else. And the designs on the front of them are all illustrations by children and young people. The cards themselves are blank inside, so any message can be put in, but they are really lovely. And I'm sure we can somehow get some examples to you so you can see them.
Did you actually want actual cards or just the artwork to see?
I don't mind if you see the art. Sorry. I don't mind if it's actual cards or if it's just seeing the artwork. Yeah, I just think it's interesting to see what the young people are doing.
I absolutely agree, and maybe the whole committee. Councillor King.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much for the report and introducing it. You, in the same item 3.7, you're saying the artwork is from the 2021 virtual art exhibition. Is there a plan to hold virtually or maybe not virtually any art exhibition this year?
I'm not sure yet. We haven't completely put together the project plan for the year, so I'm not sure at this stage.
Okay, I think our colleagues from Cosmic Committee would be happy to discuss. If you have ideas, we can make sure that we create the right linkages between councillors and officers to kind of put something in place. So let us know. Thank you.
Yes, if you were to perhaps get back to me or Councillor Bradnam, and we'll pass it on, because I think I'm pretty sure I know who Councillor King is thinking of, would have the skills to take that on further. Thank you. Yes, Kevin.
Sorry, I just wondered if when the CFCA back, I think about 2 years ago, just before COVID hit us, they'd arranged worry packs. Sounds very similar, and I think it's just worth clarifying if that's something that's replacing that, or a similar thing. I think it was for carers to have as a one per household for the age range of children that we had in with us. So it's very similar, I think. So when they came into care, there was a booklet and bits and pieces. So it's something that we did, and there's a stock of them somewhere. So it might just be worth tying up on that one.
I'll just leave you to follow up on that, please, Ollie.
Yes, thank you for that, Kevin. I'm not familiar with the worry packs. They sound like a great idea as well. Certainly this isn't to replace them, just to be clear. This is for all children, irrespective of what kind of, placement they move to. But I will find out about those worry packs, because I'm quite interested in those, and I would like to make sure that if there is info in there for young people, I'd need to make sure that it's it's being updated regularly if things change in terms of the service they were going to receive and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. And any feedback you have from the carers on how they work, or some ideas that come to you, because you're the experts on what helps the young people in our care. So thank you. Right, thank you. I think we've noted the contents of the report and raised queries with lead officers and one another. And thank you. So we can move on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ollie. I don't know whether you listen in on the rest of it, but
I probably will depart soon, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Item 5 is the report from the Cambridgeshire Foster Carers Association. Now we have, hopefully online, Fiona van den Hoed. I hope I've said the vowels right.
Hello, hi. Hello, Councillor Slatter. It's Van den Hout. Thank you. And just before I present the key parts of the report, Councillor Slatter, just picking up on the question around the worry packs, I do believe that those have been handed to the participation team.
Right. Well, knowing how many people have been moving about, and
Exactly.
There's probably a box somewhere, but it sounds like they're worth looking for. Yes, we leave it like that and hope somebody track it down before too long. I'm sure Kevin will remind us if we don't produce them. Thank you very much. So yes, so item 5, if you'd like now to comment, present your report. Thank you.
So likewise with Ollie, I don't intend to go through all the points within the report, but there were a couple of key areas that I did like to raise these and then open up for questions. So one of the comments that was made by foster carers at Ricky's Coffee and Cake informal meeting in February was the concern around the cost of the lateral flow tests, particularly considering for some fostering families, they have a number of children that they're looking after as well as their own sons and daughters. I have raised this actually with Charlotte Black, who put me in touch with Dee Revens, who is developing a list of essential workers. I just wanted to reassure committee that actually, foster carers have been put on that list. So we're just waiting for feedback from the government, but I'm hopeful we'll have a positive response in that regard. I did want to notice, sorry.
May I just come back on that? Forgive me if it's not, I've not been clear. Are we talking then about carers being, foster carers being considerably out of pocket and therefore needing that in retrospect? Because I'm not sure what the future holds for tests and whether they're free or not. But is this something that has been discussed? Because we obviously don't want our foster carers to be in embarrassments, should we say?
Absolutely, Councillor Slatter. I mean, The concern that was raised is if there is a requirement to test all children, say on a Sunday before they go to school on the Monday, that's a considerable cost for that amount of tests, isn't it, per week? So what we've asked for is that foster carers are placed on the essential worker list that I understand is being shared with our colleagues in public health, and we're waiting to hear back.
So can I just clarify? So the obvious issue that was raised at the CFCA meeting was obviously that foster carers were concerned that they may be out of pocket. What we're saying as a local authority in terms of supporting our foster carers, as we have done historically, is that they will be essential workers. So they'll be included on the essential worker list, which will enable them to get free tests, so they won't be out of pocket. In very much the similar way that we did in terms of prioritising our foster carers for vaccination. So we will follow the same suit. We will do exactly the same, and the council will work together in order to achieve that aim so that foster carers are not out of pocket.
Okay with that? Are you looking? Please raise your hand.
Sorry,
if you're wanting to speak.
I'm looking a bit blank because it was in the tea and cake meeting, wasn't it, Ricky, that was raised? So for me as a foster carer, we've had tests from schools, but obviously it's not, depending on the area that you live, it becomes more difficult to get them. So that's great. I think that, yeah, so to say that's great that we'll be included on that list as well. Make it easier.
Fine, thank you. I must admit that does explain it, because I was wondering how come that they've been paying for it at all. Now that's explained, thank you. And we must make sure that in future we do keep an eye out on that problem. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you. Please do go.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. Previously at subcommittee, we have discussed the skills to foster training. And I did want to feed back to subcommittee that this is the pre-approval training for foster carers. And we particularly had comments within the foster carer survey around the need to update that training. What we have now decided to do, and it was with foster carer representation as well, and their feedback, is to change that course from skills to foster to journey to foster instead. And I'm hoping that will commence in the summer. Okay, so in terms of the issues that have been raised, particularly by the Cambridgeshire Foster Carer Association, we have discussed previously the need to raise the profile of the association wherever we can as a fostering service to attract carers to affiliate with the Foster Care Association. And we have started to do that by putting information around both the committee in Peterborough and the association in Cambridgeshire in the foster care newsletter, which is shared with all of our fostering community. We will be inviting, and we have invited, we're just waiting for the date to be confirmed, representatives from the Cambridgeshire Association and Peterborough Committee to a training session with prospective foster carers, which will take place just prior to their attendance at foster panel where they're approved. We are including information about the association and committee on the Fostering Services website. We also will be holding a new carers event in May, and we're inviting both the association and the committee to hold a publicity tour at that event. And as we've said before, we will ensure that supervising social workers, when they visit their carers on the first supervision session, also take information about both the association and the committee with them. I know that it has been asked previously, and Kevin and I have discussed this previously as well. We can't, regrettably, provide foster carers with a council email address because what I've been advised is to do that, we would also need to provide the whole network access. So unfortunately, we're not able to do that currently. We talked about the challenges that foster carers are having securing dental appointments. and Myra Farrell attended the association meeting. And Myra is the head of service for corporate parenting, and she's in discussion with health leads about the availability of dental appointments, and confirmed that a letter has also been sent to NHS England from both Cambridgeshire and Peterborough corporate parenting committees, raising their concern about the lack of dental provision for children in care and care leaving young people. Foster carers also raised they're experiencing delays in receiving passports for children in care and requested clarity on why the delays were happening. Foster carers were asking for guidance and a standard process to be shared with them, and would like to do what they can to support the children's teams in this process becoming quicker for children. And Myra also confirmed when she attended the association that the process is being reviewed, and her intention is that foster carers can take the lead on passport applications. So the practice guidance will be across all the children's teams who work with children in care, and that's in development. Foster carers have reported that they are experiencing issues with transport, particularly at the start of the academic year. And again, carers are keen to provide their support where it would be helpful. So discussions have taken place with the transport team, and who recognise that driver shortages are impacting on service delivery, and they're working with the independent visiting service to hopefully recruit more volunteers. There is further improvements on the horizon with a new transport software, and I've detailed what that will include for carers, and the lead in the transport department will provide some further information for the foster carer newsletter. Finally, foster carers noted that the additional allowance consultation is not yet complete, but this will be responded to by Ricky, and we have a new date of the end of March. Any questions?
I think we now move to Kevin to speak first, because there are several things I'd like to raise. It may well be that you're going to answer those, so I'd like, but this doesn't mean you can't talk again, please. But if you'd like to give us your comments on the report, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Slatter. Obviously, I'm here to represent the foster carers' wider kind of voice as the chair of the committee, and just to say that since our last attendance here, we've now got 10 members on the committee instead of just 3 or 4. So we've had some really good support and some good feedback about the transparency that's been happening. So just a couple of things that I've just written down in reference to ask questions. I think what the comments that the committee have asked me to raise today against the report is that mainly over the finance section, which for foster carers is a really tricky thing because nobody comes into caring for children for financial remuneration. But I think where carers are concerned is that it's taken quite a considerable length of time to get to this point. And there was a consultation process started in August 2019, and we're now in March 22. So although there have been, I think in August, September 20, there was one part released, but it's come in different parts. So there is a certain amount of nervousness from carers as to how that's going to pan out, and that's not to say they're worried about the money. Inside of all of that is other things like respite offers and other support services that we need as foster carers to be able to do a good job for the children. So that's very much still ongoing, and unfortunately the later part of it has slipped a bit from looking at sort of before Christmas into January and then into March and now the end of March. I've been asked also though to say carers are grateful for the uplift that we've been given, which isn't in the report, because I think it came afterwards. And obviously they're kind of grateful for that, but on the other hand are still waiting to see how that's really going to pan out on the other side. that's the kind of message there. The other comments that were made really from carers is that there's a lot of work going into new carer recruitment, which is great. And I think there's quite a lot of carers that have come across from independent agencies over time. And there's a place for independent agencies, but there's also a drive for carers to really be a part of the local authority. And so the concern, I think, for carers is that bringing in new carers into the local authority, whilst all of that's a bit up in the air because it's taken so long as to, sorting those things out in-house first. So that's the kind of comments that I've got back from carers on that report. And the last part was about, carers understand it's unprecedented times at the moment. We've obviously had the COVID pandemic, and now we're into something else, and so then they do understand the pressures that come with budgets and things. But obviously they're striving to do the best thing for the children. And I think some of the difficulty sometimes for carers is, lots of carers have changed their whole lifestyle to do this. They've given up their jobs and their careers, and it's a vocation. They're doing it out, really wanting to do the best, and they need to know that they can really provide for those children, do the best for them, and of course their families. So that's the tricky part. That's kind of the comments I was asked to deliver, and I've got some questions, but if I leave that there for a minute. And
I'm sure I speak for the committee in wanting, through you, to say how much we appreciate how vital, absolutely vital, the work of the foster carers is, and the ones that we feel that are our foster carers particularly, and we do need more, but we do need clearly a package of what you can claim expenses for, what you can expect from the county council, either regularly or in times of need, where your own wider family needs you to do certain things which make it difficult. So yes, we do need to have that clarity if we are recruiting new people, and I'm sure Ricky is aware of that. But again, certainly by the next meeting, I would certainly hope that that will be resolved to your satisfaction, because we certainly don't want to lose anybody, and we don't want to fail to recruit new people because there's not a clarity. We know that everybody's facing massive cost of living increases, and this is one of those services we must not let be vulnerable. I think perhaps speaking on behalf of the committee with that. You had some more. Ollie, did you want to come back on any of what Kevin has just said, or should we move on to his questions? Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, my fervent apologies. I've used the wrong name for you, Fiona. Did you want to come back?
No, absolutely not.
You're happy with what Kevin?
Yes, absolutely.
Fine. Do please continue, Kevin. I have to apologise.
I've written down about the email addresses, and I wondered if the local authority had any other ideas about that. The reasoning behind this was, we obviously, as an association, we talk with other associations with different local authorities. We team up with the Fostering Network and have Eastern regional meetings. Something that Suffolk have done, their carers have sort of a more integrated approach with their liquid logic system, which we've talked about before. And I think with the email addresses, that's kind of a necessary part of that. So it seems a shame if there's a bit of a blank drawn. I'm just wondering if there's a way around that or an alternative.
I wasn't quite sure what it was you were asking for, but Ricky is going to answer it.
I'll certainly do my best. So you're right, Kevin. I mean, predominantly, we are seeking, particularly in the fostering service, a much more alignment in relation to how foster carers record, and that's linked to our liquid logic system, which is our childcare database. What we are having to do is we are having to consider, in terms of priority, the order of things that get added to liquid logic. So we know that this is an area that we do need to do, but in terms of prioritizing it in relation to all the other things that we're doing, it's middle of the list. When it happens, it will be really, really efficient. It doesn't mean that you have to have a Cambridgeshire email address. You can still use your own, because in the authority I worked in before, it basically talks from your email, whichever that is, to the system and records directly into the childcare's record and sends an email to the child social worker that says that you've recorded something. So it's very efficient, and we're very keen to get it, as much as you are as foster carers, but we're just going to have to take our time a little bit.
So just for clarity, and there may be other people listening to this online, you're not saying that you can't contact officers by email. It's more to do with sharing information about your children and putting records into a system, a confidential system, a central one. Is that it?
I think it's a twofold thing, really. Part of it is from a safeguarding security point of view, that so a lot of the time, if we had a Cambridgeshire email address, it's quite safe and secure to send emails, because a lot of foster carers have their own emails. Our fostering emails get mixed up with our own unless we have a separate email address. So I think it was part of the question from foster carers was, if we are a partner and part of the service, then if we were to have a Cambridgeshire email address, it was specific for fostering within Cambridgeshire. And we have a lot of emails between, say, for example, virtual school or an advocate or somebody, and because we're using our own private email addresses, we then get into like an egress secure mail system and things. It can get quite complicated. So it was just a kind of question, really, is there a reason why we can't, as foster carers, be included within that? And the second part of that was then it would link to that, but maybe if that doesn't matter, then. But the Liquid Logic is a recording system the local authority use, and for foster carers, we're all recording in different ways. So some are using paper, some are using email, and we're obviously really conscious of the data that we've got hold of and that what we're sending, and that we're doing that in the most secure way to protect the children. And so that was a way that we could see that might well just solve that ambiguity around it. Does that help? Yes,
that enlightens me, and I hope that you feel that progress is being made and will be made further. And I'm sure there's lots of knowledge amongst the officers and the counsellors about how best to get this IT problem sorted. Thank you. Was there anything more?
The only other thing was the passports. Carers are really keen to offer their support to social workers for that. And I just think it's worth noting here that whilst the passport, if it's a new application, it's usually done by the social workers. If there's renewals and things, foster carers are really happy to be doing that for them, because we know that they're really pushed for time. Sorry, I'm talking to you there, Kerry. But we know that they're pushed for time. So we're happy to help with that if there's a procedure that can be done to, adjusted to accommodate it.
Thank you. I gather Councillor Hay was trying to just say something, please. I don't like to think you're being ignored.
But my question is something totally different. It's about the fostering recruitment ambassadors, bottom of page 16, top of page 17. And it mentions that they identify opportunities to increase awareness of private fostering and fostering as a career. I just wanted you to elaborate a bit more on what is exactly meant in there by private fostering. And as you're probably aware, I was a foster parent many, many years ago, when there is no way it could have been looked as fostering as a career. I want to know what's changed that now enables foster parents to treat it as a career, because I would say most people who go into fostering wouldn't even think that it could be a career.
Fiona? Yes, I get the feeling that Councillor Hay is talking to Fiona on that. It's very hard to get to the sight lines when we're online.
No, that's fine, thank you. So private fostering, Councillor Hay, is another activity that we undertake within the service, which is when children are living with a close relative who or family friend by permission from their parents, if you like. and we have a duty to make sure that that arrangement is safe for children. These are older children. But we also have a duty to make sure that, say, for example, our language schools, international schools, our boarding schools are aware of what private fostering is, to make sure that they notify the local authority when there's an arrangement like this being planned. So we want to make sure that our recruitment ambassadors, whilst they're raising the profile of fostering in their local areas, are also talking about private fostering, really as part of our communication strategy around private fostering. When you say about fostering as a career, I think, and certainly from what I've heard from foster carers, and Kevin, please add anything you wish to, but I do feel that foster carers, they are professionals. They want to be seen as professionals, and for some foster carers, it is a career. It's a career choice. It's not, it's a lifestyle choice, but it's also, the fact that we want to treat our foster carers, our fostering community, in the same way that, and see them in the same way as we see other professionals within our organisation. Does that help? Is there anything you want to add, Kevin, to that?
Come back.
But I think Councillor Hay is indicating she would like to have to follow up on that first, please.
Yeah, if I can come back on that, I suspected that was what was meant. I mean, so I think we should all recognise that our foster carers are extremely valuable and they do a professional job. But it just concerned me by the way it was put, fostering as a career, that it could be read that there is sufficient remuneration to make it a choice over working outside the home.
Ricky would like to contribute to that. Thank you.
I think it's a very fine balance, and I take your point, but it is one of the key areas in terms of our recruitment strategy to think about, particularly given that so many families over the last 2 years have really had to adapt. Lots of people have made different choices in terms of working. Some have decided that they want to, I think it's very much similar to a caring professional. It's a vocation rather than occupation. And Kevin will be able to talk as a foster carer, but I mean, people generally think about becoming a foster carer about a year before they make an application or decide to. What we as a council want to do is to make it attractive so that people come to the council and become foster carers, because that's what we need. We need more foster carers to offer placements to the children that we're looking after. So we want to treat them in the same way as we would a job family. So if we think of a job family, and what we do is we have skill levels. So foster carers work through the skill levels, identifying experience and knowledge. So career is a very professional word, but again, I would suggest, as same as Fiona, that is recognition that foster carers are seen as professionals. We want to treat them as professionals. It's not just about remuneration, it is about status, and for foster carers it is about acknowledging that. So if I'm a new carer talking to a carer that's been fostering for 10 years, I will acknowledge that they've worked for 10 years as a foster carer, and they'll be able to teach me some of that, the same as I would do in a role in a job. And we support that through our mentoring scheme, of course. So I mean, it is very emotive to use the word career, but we are in a changing marketplace that we've got to start thinking about how we attract people, particularly foster carers, to come and work for the council. Kevin, I don't know whether you've got anything else you wish to add.
Kevin.
Yeah, I think career is an interesting word, because I think that does kind of flag up why people might go into fostering. As a foster care, I mean, you don't go into it as a career. You would go into it to help vulnerable children and their families hopefully reuniting children with their families where possible, otherwise giving these children the best start you possibly can. But I can sort of understand where the local authority are coming from using the term in how Ricky's explained that. I think what I would the part that I did have some more to say about the ambassador scheme and the recruitment. What carers have said to me is that we need to urge the local authority to look at the offers that are out there for IFAs, for independent agencies, for new carers as well, because actually the skills level that a local authority works on is very much local authority driven, and that's not the same in the outside market. So to attract new carers, it's not an even playing field for a new carer to come in. So it's there's a bit of work to be done there, possibly, to really analyse that. And it's kind of a traditional, it's a cultural thing maybe that's been there for a while. So that's something to consider. And I think as carers, the career part comes into play with the training that we do. So there's a hell of a lot of training that we have. And there is a good offer now of training with Cambridgeshire. There's some great online training. And that's really improving and really useful. So that side of things, I think the continuous professional development almost puts it towards a career, but it's very much a vocation and lifestyle. But if that's helpful.
Thank you. I think we've sort of pinned things down better, and hopefully to everybody's satisfaction. And I think your point in bringing in your reference to private agencies, we're all well aware of the desirability, for all sorts of reasons, of improving our in-house foster care, both for their sake and for the numbers, and not having to use private agencies because there's a shortage of in-house. But they should only, be the choice because there's a specialist offer in particular that we need to go for a particular child. So I would certainly like to know what is on offer from the private agencies that might be competing with what we have to offer. So I think probably other members would feel the same. Was that an indication to speak? Councillor King.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. It's probably my question following from the discussion we sort of started to have. What I would be interested to hear from both, maybe Fiona or Ricky, and Kevin, yourself as well, is what is, in terms of if we compare being a foster carer for in-house foster carer for local authority as opposed to for a private agency, what is one or two key advantages of being an in-house foster carer? What is it in our recruitment we would want to put in big capital letters, kind of at the top of the pile, to make sure that we attract the interested foster carers before they, or above the independent agencies? Thank you.
I don't know whether we need an answer to that this minute. I think we need to know that we've got the answer. And that might also making sure we get contribution from, because we do have some foster carers who've come over to us, as it were. And they're obviously the experts, though Ricky, I'm sure, knows a great deal about what else is on offer. I probably don't need to pursue that now. But I think something in writing, certainly from my point of view, would be very helpful, and some figures, because if indeed there is a financial advantage initially in working for a private agency, we need to look at that as well, from the point of view of the county council. Yes, and right. But I personally would welcome them in writing. You saying you. So.
I think we know the costs to the council of foster carers in-house as opposed to agencies, and kind of very much hope that there isn't a financial advantage of being an agency foster carer. So I kind of take that as read, but there's got to be hopefully a whole host of advantages of, which kind of compete, if not entirely outweigh, of becoming an in-house foster carer. Yeah.
It's a very valid question, and I could talk about it for a long time, but I won't. What I will do, though, is I'm happy to send through some of the materials that we've got as we are rebranding them to look at what the USPs are really for joining a local authority, which is, I think, what you're asking. So number one would be local. We're your local authority, which is absolutely fundamental in my book. And we'll send round to members, what our USPs are for the council. You're absolutely right. There is a monetary incentive with IFAs, and we know that because obviously those cost the council more money. But what we will do is we will say why you should become a foster carer for the local authority. We can send those around by all means. Yeah.
You were looking at me, and I think.
I think just to come back on that, I think what carers are trying to get across is that obviously the independent agencies do cost the local authority quite a lot of money, and whilst there's a place for those, we could potentially attract more foster carers if we were on more of a level playing field from the beginning, and that's I think the key comparison. But I can also do that in writing.
Thank you. I think we've dealt with that much. I did want to mention that Fiona had brought up subjects like the dentistry. Now, we could deal with that now, or we can do it with the health report. I think probably better with the health report. But we certainly are onto that, shall we say, in other committees to this one as well. Now, was there anything more on Fiona's report on behalf of the association? Right. I'd like to ask then, is there any reason why our in-house foster carers aren't immediately members of the association? Do we need to promote it? Can we not make it an automatic thing? I'm asking you really, I think, Kevin.
I'd love to see the foster care, excuse me. I'd love to see the foster carers automatically part of the association, and that's something that we have spoken about, almost enrolling them and they can opt out if they don't want to be as part of their registration when they're approved. That's an ongoing discussion with the service. I know there's some data protection difficulties about the service sharing with the association. I understand foster carers' addresses. And what we've asked the service to do is, through supervising social workers, to really just say to the foster carers in the supervisions, look, are you okay with us sharing the details, and be really proactive about it? So I think there's some room for.
Before we get an officer response, it doesn't cost anything to be part of the association, I take it?
No, it doesn't, no.
So we're not talking about a membership fee or anything. Ricky, could you?
Yeah, of course. So I was just going to mention really that there is a fine line between registering somebody and saying you will be, rather than having and giving them the choice. So we are exploring all of the different options alongside the committee, and we'll work with them in trying to work. I mean, we want to promote it because clearly we want foster carers to be heard. We want them to be part of that community, and that's just one aspect of it. I mean, there are support groups that are operating in the community that, again, foster carers attend, and again, they may attend with somebody that's a member of the committee, and by word of mouth they may be able to go along. But we will continue to work with the committee in promoting attendance, because it's really promising that we started with 3, we've got now 10 members that are going to the committee, and that's really positive. I mean, in the same way as I will promote it at my coffee and cake events. Sounds very grand, doesn't it? Coffee and cake. I don't actually give anybody cake because we do it virtually, but we have a cup of tea and a biscuit.
It's the excuse of the tubes going all the way along. Kevin.
Yeah, no, I think the difficulty that we have in this as an association is, obviously we want to represent foster carers' voices and to be able to get to all of the foster carers. And I think it's right that it does need to be their choice. But if we can have that kind of almost endorsement from the service to say, you know, you need to do this because it's really useful, then yeah, and if we can encourage that, that would be good. And what I was really going to say was, sorry, the 10 members, that's 10 people on the committee. We actually have, I think we had about 20 odd. Yeah, so you don't, committee members are kind of taking on additional roles and maybe attending meetings and things. And then any foster carers are welcome to come to those meetings.
I mean, it would be helpful to know you know, how many you've got as foster carers that take part then, but are they actually members? Would you know how many are out there that you could be bringing in and how many you've already got?
We have a list of members, names and addresses, well, names and emails that we have, and we've got about 110 of them. And I think for the service, there's, I think about 230-ish. Of the 110 that we've got, some of those are duplicate families. So yeah, we certainly can provide, you know, a list back and, you know, target it. So yeah.
Well, I'd certainly like to see a higher proportion of our carers with that sort of help available in whatever form they wanted to take. Good. Thank you very much.
Sorry,
any other questions?
Sorry, I was just putting my hand up. Just to say, any information, like for example, the foster carer newsletter goes out to all our carers, so the whole fostering community. So they will have that information about the association.
Is that emailed out?
Yes, it is emailed out. Yeah,
A regular way of communicating. So I'm sure that Kevin will make most of that that's already happening. Thank you. Thank you. And it's right and proper, I think, to deal with that particular item in detail, but we are supposed to be also focusing on health. So if we may move on now to item 6. Yes, and you now have Dr. I've lost my briefing.
Dr. Mona Aslam.
Thank you for rescuing the,
No
the
worries,
Vice Chair in her inadequacy. Thank you very much, Doctor.
So I'm presenting the report on behalf of the designated nurse, Catherine York, who I think she's on annual leave at the moment. So I hope I give it due justice. So the report looks at the period between April 2021 to December 2021, and obviously this was in the sort of the depths of the pandemic, and so there have been some health impact because of the pandemic. But one of the good things that has come out of this is a monthly meeting which we have with children's local authority social care, which is called the Children in Care Partnership Meeting, and that's done once a month. And you know, problems are looked into, and you know, areas that were previously difficult to sort out, you know, have gone on to sort of form pathways which are easier to look at when you're both in the meeting. So that's one good thing that has come out of the pandemic. Initially, in terms of initial health assessments, they were being done virtually for all groups, unless there was a specific health need to see them face to face. But since April 2021, the 0 to 3 year olds were being seen face to face. And since June 2021, all initial health assessments have been now face to face. With regards to the review health assessments, some are being done virtually and some are being done face to face. And this is based on preference of the children in care as to those who prefer to have them done virtually. Going on to the numbers, the initial health assessments done in county we were achieving about 75% that were being done within the 20-day time frame. That is similar to the previous figure. Where we haven't done well at all is the out-of-county health assessments, where we're only achieving 15% being done within the 20-day time frame. So possible reasons for this need to be explored further, but it perhaps needs breaking down in terms of when are we getting the referrals from social care? Also, are the children attending those appointments, or is there another reason for why they didn't want to attend the appointment within the 20-day time frame? And in terms of the out-of-county placements, there may be some service issues in those counties where the children are placed, but that needs to be looked into because 15% is not right. We are, and I have been involved in doing an audit, which is looking at children's initial health assessment and review health assessments. And we should finish the audit at the end of this month. So hopefully we'll be able to present that to yourselves next time. We've also looked at part of the health assessments involves a strengths and difficulties questionnaire, and we've had 27% response in terms of returns. Now, this again needs to be improved. It's actually beforehand, the strengths and difficulties questionnaire was being given to carers before their face-to-face meeting, but because of the pandemic and some of it being virtual, we've relied on them returning the questionnaires via email, and so that can account for some of the poor response. Prior to the pandemic, strength and difficulties questionnaires have always been an issue, and this is a work stream which the designated nurse is working with children's social care to try and improve. One area that they are looking at is to inform the importance of the strength and difficulties questionnaire to the foster parents as well, to see whether that can help with response rates. Those who are involved in the strength and difficulties questionnaires are the foster parents, children who are over the age of 11, and also the schools as well. So it's a tripartite look at the strength and difficulties that the children are going through, but we certainly need to improve on that, and we are aware of that. We have also just recently completed collecting data for our unaccompanied asylum seeking children who are having health assessments. This takes the form of blood-borne virus screening. So when children who are unaccompanied asylum seeking are seen at their initial health assessments, they are then referred on to the blood-borne screening clinic, which at the moment I think most of them are going to iCash in Peterborough and having their blood-borne virus screening done. And they're also part of the TB screening services, which isn't part of iCash, but they are referred to TB screening. And I'm just almost finishing an audit looking at the data that we've collected since June 2021 to December 2021. So hopefully we'll have the report on that as well. And lastly is the dental issue, which you mentioned. So since January last year, 2021, dentists were being commissioned to do 85% of their previous full-time work because of the pandemic and the need for them to also reduce the number of patients that they were being seen. However, extra funding was given to dentists to see the looked after children, which unfortunately is coming to an end at the end of March this year. I think one of the practices, St Mary's in Ely, had put on some extra sessions to see the looked after children, and this is an ongoing work in progress with NHSE to look at dental care as a whole for looked after children, but we are well aware of the need to prioritise our children in care. That's the report in summary.
Thank you, Doctor, and apologies again that we came to you a little late. We have Councillor Goodliff who'd like to ask, and then Councillor Hay. Thank you.
Thank you. Firstly, the SDQ, obviously the rate is one issue, but can I also ask how it's audited and what you use the scoring system for, and whether you also have obviously an ongoing audit of the changes of level that the young people show. Regarding St Mary's in Ely, obviously that's a great scheme. I'd be really interested to how we can look to enrol other dental surgeries in that, because obviously that's great for those who have transport or in Ely, but obviously something that if we could persuade other surgeries across the county to roll out, that would help us too. And also, how are you preparing for the possible increase in unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, particularly with the events going on in Ukraine at the moment? Are we able to ramp up our services in line with possible increase in numbers? Thanks.
Okay, with regards to the SDQs, so at the moment, the audit that I'm doing with the designated nurse actually just looks at whether they were given the SDQ questionnaire before they came, whether it was present at the meeting when they came, and if not, were they then sent it to return later on. So those are the three areas that are being looked at the moment. In terms of the scoring and what is being done, the pathway is at the moment not complete. Depending on the degree of severity, we are looking at where they should be signposted. And I'm more in touch with what's happening in the Peterborough area, where at the moment they've got a hub, a central hub, where they are being referred to, and then they are being either given counselling or psychology or psychiatry, depending on their need. Now, in terms of what's happening in the Cambridgeshire area, I think Catherine may be more aware than I am what's happening with the results of the scoring. And I can feed back on that one when Catherine returns from leave. I'll make a note of it. Yes, in terms of the dental issues, I agree. We need to have more understanding of the needs of children in care. One is that often they come in because of neglect into care, and dentition is a real issue for a lot of children. And the initial health assessments, one suggestion has been that the doctors who are doing the initial health assessment should be doing a mini mouth assessment, just looking at their dentition, looking at their gum issues, and if need be, then asking the social worker to make sure that they get dental treatment. But I agree with you that what we need to do is to engage our dentists and make them more aware of the need, and perhaps have a forum where the dentists in the Cambridgeshire area can offer their own suggestions as to what is the best way forward. In terms of your last question, the unaccompanied asylum seeking children and increasing numbers that will be taking hold. At the moment, all the unaccompanied asylum seeking health assessments, all the unaccompanied asylum seeking bloodborne virus screening is being done in Peterborough. And currently all the initial health assessments are also being done in Peterborough of the unaccompanied asylum seeking children. So because I have asked this question to our named doctors in Cambridgeshire, and they're saying that they're all at the moment being done in Peterborough. I am aware of a backlog in Peterborough as well, and we did offer, the acute paediatricians did offer to help with that, but we're being told that at the moment that isn't required. Because I work in acute paediatrics, I am aware that a number of my colleagues are very happy to help if there is a backlog.
Thank you. Well, I'm sure you would welcome any offers to use your networks, and no doubt feedback to Catherine York and yourselves if there are any offers. Similarly, I think if any of us want to use networks with dentists, that would be great, because there may be some who don't have NHS spaces but wouldn't mind a bit of pro bono even, if we're lucky. Whether that's ever allowed into the system, I don't know. Now, I did have Councillor Hay next. Nobody else.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Goodliffe has already asked my main question, which was about encouraging more dental practices to take part. So it's only a very minor thing I'm going to say here, and that is about the bloodborne virus, the audit that has been done. There is a small typo error in there, top of page 26, where it says delaying the final findings being reported on until March 2021. I believe that should be 2022. So I would ask the officers on the report that is posted online, can they go and alter that so it doesn't confuse people who may go on later to read it?
Thank you. I think we missed that one. You get the prize. Thank you. I don't know whose hand went up first. Councillor.
Thank you so much, Chair. So I want to ask the question which I'm hoping is straightforward and straightforward answer. Initial health assessments for children coming into care, do they include mental health assessment? It just struck me that in this report, at least in this report, I haven't seen any metrics, any paragraph which specifically refers to mental health. Well, I think we all know how huge an issue it is for our children and in kind of all of them, but specifically children in care. And clearly for unaccompanied asylum seekers, that will be and is probably a huge issue as well. Thank you.
So at the initial health assessment, they're done by general paediatricians who aren't psychiatrists, and they're not doing a detailed mental health assessment, but their general well-being is asked about. Their sleeping, their eating, their mood, all these things are asked about.
And if I understood you rightly, there was you made reference to referring on to mental health services when that is a need is identified. Yes. It will be a secondary referral. Thank you. To Kevin.
I just want to pick up. We had a discussion with the service at one of our meetings about the SDQ forms and foster carers returning them. And something that foster carers wanted to raise was that they do get the forms. I think it needs looking at as to there are different types of foster carers, and as to if they're in-house or if they're IFA carers or if they're maybe connected persons, as well as to where they're not being returned. But also feedback from the health service to foster carers, because we're often filling out numerous amounts of forms. We're caring for the children 24/7, and we really want to know, because we want to know how we can help them. And often, you know, we could fill out the form and we don't necessarily get a response on an SDQ. So what would be great, I think you said that you were looking to give more feedback to foster carers. I think what would be good for foster carers is more understanding about what the SDQ does, how you use it, and what we should expect back from that, because then, you know, we're able to help with those pathways and advocate for the children. So that was just a comment I wanted to make on that one. And just with the sending back of those SDQs, because a lot of these things come, that was a very good example as to the egress system with health. That's where we get a lot of the stuff through this additional kind of layer of security. For some foster carers are maybe not so technically minded, it becomes quite tricky to navigate that, to send things back. So just in their defense. The last point, I don't know whether to raise it here, but I will. Just thinking about the health audit not being completed, and this is maybe not my remit, but if it's not completed now, but we're on health, I know we've talked about in the subcommittees before about the topics and having them, you know, a specific topic once a year. I kind of just wanted to flag that for, as a foster carer and an advocate for the children, you know, time gets lost so quickly. And, you know, we are on top of these things and pushing things along so much that actually leaving things, you know, potentially for a year is quite significant. And I just wanted to raise that there, because I feel that maybe there needs to be more of an ongoing look at these things. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you've raised some of the issues I had also wondered about from the outside, and that is, you know, it's presumably you have to do a certain amount of nagging to get them to fill in the forms, and then you have to get them, you know, off. And if there are IT problems, I'm a byword amongst the officers that I cannot fill in my petrol expenses, at least without, you know, bursting into tears, really, seriously, because I find these things really difficult. The themes, I think this is something that is already under review in terms of whether it actually helps or whether actually regular running through pretty well everything, but still making sure we pick things up soon enough is maybe what we need, especially in the lifetime of a child. That is the context, after all. Thank you. I think, Doctor, that we have covered that. There's no other questions. Thank you very much indeed. And again, apologies if we kept you waiting.
No, thank you very much.
And for my grouping for your name as well. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you. So we have, without my spelling it out, sorry, I know you've written it for me, noted the contents of the report, and we've raised any queries. Thank you. And we can now move on to item 7, the Corporate Parenting Performance Report for December 2021. And it's over to Ricky for that. And I must say yet again, thank you very much for producing this very handy reference point. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. So the report obviously has been shared with everybody. We've got Kerry Seymour, who's the service manager from the Corporate Parenting Service here. I mean, we're open to questions in relation to the data that obviously members are able to see, and any other questions. I wonder whether it might just be helpful, Kerry, if you could just take us through. Getting some feedback, which has never happened before. But I wonder, Kerry, whether it might be helpful just to take us through some of the highlights of that report for members, and then obviously members will be able to ask any questions and we'll be able to answer them.
Yes, okay, thank you. So yes, I've just pointed out just a few highlights from the report. So the first one is around placement stability. So just to highlight that we've been working really hard within the children in care teams within the corporate parenting service around stability. And whilst we are aware that there's still much work to be done, that obviously the results from the scorecard obviously highlights the success that we've been having in place of providing that stability for our children and young people. The other one I just wanted to highlight is the type of placements. So in terms of foster care external, that's in December was reading as 234, whereas in-house is 203. So we identified that that's much more levelling out now whereas before I think there's been more external foster placements that have been used. So we've been working closely with our fostering service to try and reduce that number. And then the other one just to highlight was the PEPs, which is the personal education plans. Obviously reading at 98.4% of children of school age for children in care who've got PEPs in place. And again, there's been a lot of hard work within the service to ensure that the performance reads well, and also the quality of those personal education plans are demonstrated.
Right. May I suggest that we take them one page at a time, just so that we can join up our questions for Kerry. Were there any questions on the first sheet of the card? One small thing then that I would say in the pink bit, the use of the word breakdown in other settings. We're not quite clear what this means. When I say we, it was me and Anna Bradnam. Not quite sure what the word breakdown refers to there. Perhaps you could just explain that.
So breakdown could be the end of a foster placement, where the foster placements come to an end, or where the residentials come to an end. So it's where the placement is no longer continuing.
Yeah, so it's end rather than breakdown, is it?
Yeah, can I just clarify? The actual breakdown is the type of placement broken down. So in the right-hand box in the pink section, it says other settings breakdown, which is, if you look at the pie, it's that colour, which is the red colour. The breakdown there is that we've got 68 of that 199 in semi-independent living. Of that 199, 57 live in residential settings. That's the placement type. So it probably could be helpful to be more specific, because actually it's the placements that those children of them 199 live in. They're not breaking down, which is what we probably think.
Sorry, I thought you were referring to the placement stability, but yes, you're absolutely right. It's a breakdown of the different types of provisions that we offer or have for our children and young people.
Yeah, we could probably do without the word breakdown then, but it's the pink bit, yes.
We'll amend it.
Yeah, because it does start us, especially if we've just been, thinking about missing children or that sort of stuff. Councillor Kane.
Perhaps it would have been better to put broken down by type of placement.
We'll amend it.
Type or whatever. Yes, thank you. That was just a small point, but to make these as clear as possible. I got caught out by the fact that we've got the types of children in care different this time, so I started thinking, just a minute, we've missed something, but this is extremely helpful, and obviously you do need to evolve it sometimes. You can't keep the same setting setup each time. So the second, you actually were, sorry, I didn't see your hands. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Chair. The 203 versus 234 number, yeah, so in-house foster carers as opposed to agency. Do we have that data for our statistical neighbours in terms of, are we kind of comparable in terms of that balance, or one way or another? Thank you.
So I can answer. We don't publish the data. If we want, if you would like that, we can provide it. I mean, anecdotally, within the region, it's a very similar picture. I mean, and I know that having spoken to regional colleagues. So some authorities are ambitious. They want their numbers to be sort of 80% of their children in-house. what we have seen is a shift in the market, and that's a national issue. So all local authorities are experiencing similar challenges around recruitment, but also around placement choice for children.
Thank you. Looking at the service standards, obviously the reviews, we're on track. We're doing those. Have we got a plan in place to work on the statutory visits and the timeliness of those, please?
So there's a combination of factors at the moment in terms of why those stats are looking like they are. So currently we've got a number of children that are adopted, and we're working through the process of closing those. At the moment, they're also included in those figures. So actually, once those are closed, then that will look much healthier. And I think the other thing just to point out is that COVID is obviously having an impact on visits. So whilst children are still being visited, that could be virtually, and the recording is different, which can then change the percentage.
Can I just add also, just one anecdotal piece of information is that Kerry quite rightly points out that a percentage of those children are adopted. I mean, I think it is important to highlight that Cambridgeshire has good performance in adoption. So children are being adopted. Our figures don't always represent that, but children are not being adopted, and they're being placed for adoption despite everything that's been going on in the world. Yeah.
I must confess to being in a meeting recently and being asked how we get our adoption figures quite so good as they are. And I did say it was our amazing team that obviously did all of that. But it is noted that our adoption figures are way above statistical neighbours.
Thanks, Councillor Goodliffe. It's a good news story for Cambridgeshire. It's one that we should expand on, really.
Good. Anything more on the second page? I've already raised with Ricky the percentage of our children in care who are attending good or outstanding schools not being quite as meaningful as I'd like. I'd like to know what the percentages are for the county as a whole, and that you're going to find out. Didn't really expect you to know it off the top of your head, don't worry. But just so to give us a context, it's rather similar to comparing ourselves with other authorities. And before I ask questions, Kevin?
I was just going to comment on the education, and just to say I've actually been with Kerry on a couple of virtual school board audits and things, and I think there has been some shift there, and a lot of the social workers are really, that there is some momentum to make that better, and I think we've seen that as foster carers, so I think we should acknowledge that when that happens.
That's great to know, and thank you. If I can just return to the subject of dental treatment, I say we're on that page now. The letter that went out on the behalf of the subcommittee was an excellent and very firm letter to National Health Service England, and I thought it would be sensible to actually share it. So the officers could send a copy of the letter that was sent out, so we know, because it makes the case very clearly. And if some of us are making this point in different committees and different contexts, to have that solid background might be helpful. I don't know whether you want the same thing to go to children and young people. I mean, given email, it seems sensible. I mean, I've got Councillor Bradnam's tweakings where she was sorting some dramatical things. But I think we better have the proper letter going out to everybody. Thank you. Will that be okay, Regina? Yeah, thank you. And that was, yes, fine. Any more on the scorecard? Thank you again, Kerry. It's a serious business, this subcommittee, isn't it? And it really helps if you can put these things clearly, but we know that there's a whole human story behind each of these bits on a scorecard. We shouldn't perhaps talk too much about scorecards for children. Thank you. the form of words is that we've noted the reports and raised any queries. And thank you very much. We now move on to the subcommittee's training plan, item 8. I had a couple of suggestions, and that was really to widen invitations to the training. I'm well aware that very often, as much as we would like to, we don't manage to attend some of the training. Officers prepare really good stuff. Sometimes we can get it on record. So the more of the members that can take advantage of it, I think the better. So let me just see which ones it was. There's one coming up on 7th of April, the mental health one, and we know that this is a concern for all members. At the moment, it's being offered to the Children and Young People Committee. I've suggested certainly adults and health would be interested. It may be even one for all members. Just looking around for any reactions, certainly, yeah. Councillor Hay.
I think certainly adults and health should be included because we know that health is discussed at the Adults and Health Committee, so it's important that they. And I see no problem with widening it to all councillors, because as you rightly say, as a councillor, we are all corporate parents.
There be any problems from the point of view of the officers for this? When we're talking online,
I mean, the option is that if you do these things virtually, which we do now, you can have as many people in the room or the virtual room as you want. The only challenge is that sometimes Teams is not as good as Zoom for that facility, but we can seek to explore that. The other option, of course, is that, and Alison Bennett will not thank me, is that we could record it so that it would be available for individuals to view at their leisure if they're not able to attend virtually. So we can explore those two options by all means.
I'm quite surprised that it isn't automatic, the recording. I mean, certainly councillors give up a tremendous amount of time and they may well be juggling things. You can miss bits and that's a pity. We miss the whole thing sometimes and that's a pity. Sometimes you want to listen to it twice. So let's please make recording a pretty automatic thing. I sort of always assume now things are being recorded. It's very helpful. I don't have to write so much down. So fine, I think we've established then that that will be offered to all members. That's the 7th of April one. It's obviously quite short notice now, but with any luck, some others will benefit from it. And also, yes, please do see if we can get a recording. The other one was on the 4th of May, which is for all members, and I'm very pleased to see that, and that's a journey of children in care, which I think will be very interesting to people. What I do notice, though, is the date, and I think there will be many of our members who are embroiled in elections, and so a second opportunity to benefit from that training, maybe even live, would be very much appreciated. It may not be a county council election, but we know that that's the reality of life for councillors. Is there anything else about the already settled training? The proposed one, we're being asked to look at the proposals and check that we are still wanting officers to come forward with training. Because obviously a lot of time and effort is put into that, especially if we have outside agencies. Sorry, we haven't got the members of the subcommittee here. They may have said something. We'll get them to respond if they haven't been able to come today. The care leavers one, there again, it's of interest to children and young people. It's of interest to any member worth their salt. So it's again, that one, I'm not sure whether that's an online or what. But Ricky, could you look into whether that could be reasonably offered at a wider level? I think sometimes things are suffering more from having a failure, a small amount to take up than too much.
Yeah, we can certainly extend that, Chair, and that is ready. I know that that's ready because I've signed that that training off, so that is ready. That's good to go, actually.
Right, but it's not happening in the first week of May, I hope, or even the 2nd or the 3rd. Remembering there are the councillors getting their breath back.
So
Okay.
we can add to the training plan the dates, obviously post May. So we've got training in April, training in May. So we'll probably run some sessions over the summer, and then obviously we'll plan those over into this financial year. So we'll be able to publish a new training schedule for the May meeting.
Okay. I specified the care leavers being made available to all. The second one you might want to restrict to children and young people, but I certainly don't think it should just be restricted to corporate plan parenting subcommittee. It may be a trickier subject, perhaps, that you don't want to make too large a group responding to. Some of those things must get quite emotional when you're actually taking them seriously. Right, thank you. Anything else from members of the committee? Perhaps I should ask Kevin what he thinks we should be trained on, though I haven't prepared myself for any answer on that one. But bear it in mind, hopefully we are working in partnership here. So if you think there's something you wish the councillors knew better, let us know, perhaps in writing. And then there's the agenda plans. I may move on to that. Quite nice to have agendas you could fill in the gaps yourself. We've already mentioned for next meeting the need to tie up the loose ends from the supervised contact centre, and reunification is the word, isn't it, that you were using?
So can I just clarify, Chair, this is the meeting of the 18th of May. This is the informal meeting. There doesn't appear to be any agenda items on there.
There is now. There's tying up the loose ends, as Councillor Hay and I were mentioning, from the supervised contact centre. But presumably there's also the regular reports. I mean, I'm not quite sure how this theme thing works. I'd rather we weren't trying to exclude some subjects. So I'm assuming we do everything that's on the scorecard each time. But on the other hand, the informal ones mean that there are children involved in part of the meeting. So there's that direct participation and feedback from them. Yes, is that right?
I'm just having a look, Chair. So the health report was obviously today's meeting, wasn't it? So I think we're one missing there. We'll have to revisit the agenda plan, because I think there is a theme that's missing off of the actual document itself. It goes to placements, which is July. So the not open to public theme would be the same. So in actual fact, the theme for the May meeting will be health.
Ah, I thought it was going to be placements. Right. I don't think it matters. I think we need to cover it all every time.
I mean, we can
maybe a newbie speaking, and I don't know why we
can include the placement contact, the supervised contact service, and the feedback from the participation team. That's fine. We can include that. Because that's requested, we can include that by all means. I guess if there's any other areas or agenda items for officers, members wanting to raise them, they can.
Yes, I mean, it's interesting if the foster carers themselves are a bit unhappy about postponing the discussion of some themes to another meeting, if that's what the themes do. Because I must admit, this is new to me, this idea of having themes on something that is we've got so many overlapping issues for children.
Yeah, I guess that's the format that has always been followed. I mean, if committee wanted to take a different view, then that would obviously be something that members would have to discuss and agree here, wouldn't it, if they didn't want to approach it in that way. But that has been the routine up until now. I mean,
oh, good. I was hoping you put your hand up a bit.
Is it possible, because we were told that the audit report on the blood-borne viruses won't be available till the end of March, to have that included?
Yeah, we can include that. Yeah.
I think that's a good example, although I must admit I was thinking it was we were into placements. It makes sense to have some rolling subjects that cannot be tied up in one go. And we do need to have matters arising essentially. So thank you for reminding us about that.
Yeah.
And there may well be some more input from the point of view of unaccompanied asylum seekers or the needs that come with the Ukrainian incomers, who will not all be accompanied, even though they might have somebody holding their hand at the time. So and I'd certainly hope to have Councillor Boulat in the room for that. Okay. I think the final item on the agenda is now, we've noted the agenda plan, and I think we've concluded today's business. Thank you for bearing with me, and thank you for doing the job. It's an important one. Well, I have to say what the date of the next meeting is. Thank you, Whisper. She hadn't written that down on her briefing. Right. Date of the next meeting is, wait for it. Tell me. Oh, I see. Well, I was thinking May, but yes, 13th of July. That's the next formal meeting. Now I'm with you. Okay. Thank you. I'm sure we'd be happy to see you back, even if you're not needed as substitutes, but I'm glad you could come today. Thank you.